I'm sure we'll have a few others joining us as we go along. Looking at the time, we'll get things started here. Thanks so much for being here tonight. With the start of a new year, this is the Utah County Family to Family Network. We have both of our leaders here. You'll see them right up on top of the screen. We're going to have them do the parade wave. I know they love doing that. Jody and Tracy are the network leaders. Networks are across the state, including here in Utah County. They are families helping families as a project of the Utah Parent Center. My name is Julia. I also work with the Family to Family networks across the state and with the Utah Parent Center. Tonight, we are thrilled because we get Jody on double duty as a network leader and as a presenter talking to us about the ABCs of special needs. And I'm going to put it right over to her and let her take it away. She's going to do her introduction. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks for putting in your kids' names and diagnoses. It's sometimes really hard to get a new diagnosis, and sometimes it feels it's ongoing. I see some of you got diagnoses as your kids were older, and that can be hard as well. So let's talk about some things that we feel like can help. So there's a lot of variance in what is classified as special needs. There are those who have special needs that it doesn't affect their day-to-day lives that often. And then there's some that it affects everything that they do. And 13% of Utah's children have special needs, which I think is a pretty high amount. And that's just for those that are actually diagnosed. I'm sure there's many more that have gone undiagnosed. So this is a couple of things that a couple of moms said when their child was diagnosed. One mom compared hearing about her son's diagnosis to the day the Twin Towers fell. Just like we can remember that day very clearly, she said that she can remember exactly where she was and how she felt. And another mom said that she remembers a feeling of numbness for days after her child's diagnosis. It was like I was hoping it was just a dream and at some point I would wake up. Do some of you feel like you kind of relate to that? Thank you for posting that. Did anybody have any significant feelings when they first heard the diagnosis? You can just put it in the chat if you do, or if you did, if you want to. I'll tell you just a little bit about our situation. My son is 21 and he has cerebral palsy and cystic fibrosis. And when he was in the NICU, I was wondering, is he going to get married? Will he go to prom? I mean, those are some of the things that I was really worried about, which of course just meant I wanted somewhat of a typical lifestyle and I wanted to see him succeed. And but that was while he was in NICU. So I know sometimes we have reactions right at the beginning that can be overwhelming. Okay, I'll go ahead and go on. Oh, yeah, your heart sunk a little, but you were still relieved to have answers, so you were able to help him. That is so true. Sometimes it's so hard not to have the diagnosis and see that something is going on. Okay, common reactions. Sometimes you'll feel a sense of loss, denial and disbelief, feeling devastated or overwhelmed. Anger towards the professionals and medical staff. I had some of that. Sometimes I still do. Strained marital and family relationships and disruption in family routines. I know when I'm in the hospital with my son, I'm a totally different person. I'm I'm kind of just, let's get to the point, and I'm not as friendly. I'm just overwhelmed. And so sometimes we just have these reactions that we have to deal with. Hang on just 1 second. My screen just did something. All right, so resilience, the power of the ability to return to the original form, position, etc. after being bent, compressed, or stretched, elasticity. And sometimes it feels like we'll never be the same again. And maybe we won't, but we will be able to learn how to be resilient in different circumstances. So here's some of the challenges of accepting the diagnosis. We have distress, and we grieve the things that that we expected for our child. We sometimes wonder if that's something that we did or something that we caused. Sometimes there are a lot of doctors, appointments, therapies, all those things that kind of get us to feeling overwhelmed, that we just don't even know what's going on anymore. Every time we see someone new, they tell us to do something new. So when my son was small and we were still trying to see if he had cystic or cerebral palsy, you know, we would go to one doctor and they'd give us 2 or 3 things to do. And then we would go to another doctor and they would give us 2 or 3 things. And would go to a therapist and they would give us 2 or 3 things. All of them not understanding that all these other places were giving us things to do too. And when our early intervention person came, she asked me to stretch him every time I changed his diaper. And that was the thing that broke the camel's back for me. I lost it. I cried. I said, I just want to do something normal with him and not have to always have something that I feel like I have to do. I had to do things every time we played. It was, you know, to try and stretch his hands or whatever. And it can also feel really lonely. Sometimes people don't know how to react, and so they just kind of stop calling us or reaching out to us. And so that can be really hard. And so hopefully we can kind of talk about some of those things tonight and help us to feel better about some of those things. A father commented, "It is one thing to get the diagnosis, but that is just the beginning. The next step is figuring out your child's disability. Even with the same diagnosis, every child is going to have their own unique set of challenges to learn about." And I remember that I just wanted somebody that could completely understand me when he was younger. And they're all different. You know, if you've met one person with special needs, you've met one person with special needs. It's not across the board, and everybody does things a little bit differently. And so we just kind of have to figure out where our child is and not worry about what expectations other people might think that we should have, and just kind of learn who they are. And they're the same person that they were before they got the diagnosis. Sometimes having that diagnosis, we feel like some of you said on there, that, you know, you were just glad to know what was going on. And that's really good. And sometimes having the diagnosis can be hard for some. And so we just need to give ourselves a little bit of a break. Some tips for parents. Keep informed about new treatments and technologies that may help. Work with professionals in early intervention or in the school to develop an IFSP or an IEP that reflects your child's needs and abilities. And be patient. Keep up your hope for improvement. Your child, like every child, has a whole lifetime to learn and grow. So I am curious how many of you have your children either in early intervention or in preschool or in the school setting. If you just want to comment on that. It's really important for us to do what we can. And at first, I did every therapy that was imaginable. I thought I needed to do everything I could for my child. And I happened to meet a couple of friends in NICU. We all had kids at the same time. And I thought it was interesting. We hadn't talked about this, but we kind of all, about the same time, realized that we couldn't do everything. We couldn't do PT, OT, speech, vision, feeding all at the same time. We had our spouse or our significant others, and we had our other children. And sometimes we just had to let some go and decide what's most important now and what can we do later if that's something that we still decide we want to do. There is a gentleman named Andrew Riggle who works for Disability Law Center, and he has been somebody who has really helped teach me for my son. And he is in a wheelchair, and he's probably about 50 now. And he said to me that he finally asked his mom, "Do you feel like I'm not good enough for who I am? Why do you keep thinking I need to have all these therapies?" And that was really good for me to hear, that sometimes as moms, we do just need to step back and kind of let things go. Julia, do you want to read what people have said in the chat?
You bet. So one person has their individual in post-high. I love that, because we get diagnosed throughout a lifespan. Another person is in early intervention for 18 months, but they turned 3. So now is in special preschool with the school district with services, and he is also in ABA therapy. So a lot of stuff going on at that age. Another says their son is 3.5 and is in preschool with Alpine School District. He has severe autism. So we've got a lot of range of ages here tonight.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. I think that's important to note, that different things happen throughout their lives. And I think in preschool and having that support can be helpful. It can also be kind of scary. I had a friend that would, as soon as she would put her daughter on the bus, then she was following that bus. And finally, the bus driver pulled over one day and said, "Is there something that I need to know?" And she was just so worried about all these new things. And that can be hard. And when they're older and have been struggling, it can be really hard as well to kind of try and figure out what to do at that point when you get that diagnosis. Was there another one that popped up, Julia?
There is. So one more parent put in, they have an 11-year-old son in 5th grade who is deaf and uses cochlear implants. And there's a type of sign language, and I do not remember what that sign language is. Jackie, you're going to have to school me later. In a mainstream charter school. Also has a 6-year-old son in 1st grade with mild hearing loss and uses bone anchor hearing aids. Both went to special preschool and kindergarten at Sound Beginnings at Utah State University.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you, listening and spoken language. Thank you. I was like, oh no, I should so know this. Yes, I should so know that. Thanks, Jackie.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right. Yeah, you're all in different places, but we have hope. We have some ways to kind of help for the future. So it's important to understand that some family members will respond differently. Sometimes there's good communication and sometimes there's not. One person might be in denial and need a while to kind of let it set and kind of go over things, while another person might really feel like they need to get it out and to other people and really talk about it. They may seek more opinions. One may withdraw while the other wants to talk about it. I just said that. And one parent may be uncomfortable sharing the news outside the immediate family. And they may even be angry with the person for actually sharing it. And relationships really suffer from people having children with special needs. It's hard anyway with any child. But with the other significant things that we're doing to try and help our kids with special needs, it's important that we look at how the other person does respond, and if we can, help make that easier for them, and just try and understand each other, that you're both in different places. And I know therapy can help a lot, and right now therapy is so much easier because you can do it online, and so the child can be in the home with you while you're doing it. If you're unable to find somebody, it's best to not, but there is that. I remember one time talking to a mom, and she was really frustrated that her husband wasn't showing any emotion, and she just felt like, she was the only one that was crying and that was really upset. And one night she woke up and she heard something and she couldn't figure out what it was. And she went to the closet where she heard the noise. And the dad was just huddled up, and just bawling. And so he wanted to look like he was strong for her. But, his way of dealing with it was just kind of to try and cry by himself. And so it's important that we talk about how it's affecting the other person. It's really, really important that we take care of that relationship, and that we talk about how the diagnosis helps understand the behavior. This is going to be ongoing. Sometimes we did well with this in my marriage, and sometimes we didn't. We had many years that we had a date night every single week. It didn't matter what else happened. That was something that we did, and that was very, very helpful. And it kept us connected, because sometimes that was the most that we talked to each other throughout the week. Sometimes our days were so busy that the only time that we had was talking to each other and on our date. And a lot of times our dates was going to Walmart and doing their grocery shopping. So, but it really did help us to connect. We've started doing that again, and it's made a big difference for us again. And another thing that has helped us is that we used to kind of just want to unwind at night when we finally had our kids to sleep. And we found that we would kind of go into our own little spots and, do Facebook or read a book or something. And one thing that has also helped us is by having us just communicate every single night. My husband works afternoon, so he gets home kind of later in the evening, and we just take time to talk and not do some of those other things that we kind of needed. I also just wanted to mention, when we were first married, my husband wasn't the most romantic person, and I explained to him that I really needed that part. And he asked me to explain what romance was to him. And the reason I say that is, tell you the story, is because I was like, what do you mean? Like, if I tell you what it is, then it's not romantic. But what I learned is, talking to him about it, he did learn, and over time was able to, do things on his own. And it's kind of that way with this. If we don't explain our feelings, they're not going to be able to know what we're going through. Sometimes we want them to understand what's going through our minds, and sometimes that's just not going to happen. Were there more comments, Julia, that we need to?
Yeah, there was
Okay.
one that I think I also feel the very similar way. It's from Jackie, and she says, I remember walking the halls of the preschool and going into their observation rooms where I could watch my son interact in the class through one-way glass. it was so, so hard to let go of the reins a little. But now that he's in 5th grade, I look back and I'm so very grateful for the support we received there. That is a really powerful statement, because I remember, putting our son on the bus when he was 3 and watching on the playground. And these are really powerful moments. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, and for everyone's comments. Please continue to share your comments on here. They're really important and will help each other as well as myself. I learn a lot from you. Yeah, I remember being so afraid to put my son on the bus. I thought I didn't do that with my older son at 3. And I just wondered, I was really scared. And what I learned was that he loved the bus. He loved going to school. He loved socializing with others. And it was a great break for me too. And I was able to kind of rejuvenate myself. So, but it's hard to let the reins go, as you said. Thank you. Also, we need to make sure that we're looking at things with our other kids. We want to make sure that they understand where their place is with their sibling, what the diagnosis means and how it will affect us as a family, and to reassure them that they can share the information with others when they feel ready. And it's also okay for them to be embarrassed sometimes. All teens and kids get embarrassed of their siblings sometimes, or their family, or their other friends. That's kind of normal. And it's important that we keep that communication going so that we can let them feel comfortable with talking to us and going through some of those feelings that they are going through. And sometimes therapy might be really helpful for them as well. And help them to understand that it's nothing to feel ashamed about, and help them understand that it's no one's fault. That's something that we can all do, is remember that, this is not anybody's fault. We didn't do anything to make this happen. I remember my other son, who is 2 years older than Jacob, and he came home one day from kindergarten, and he said, "Mom, I'm really nervous about something." And I asked him what, and he said, "How will I, if you and Dad die, how will I be able to take care of Jacob and work full time and go to school full time?" And he was in kindergarten. And so, we explained many, many times that was not his responsibility. We explained who would be taking that responsibility if we did pass away, that we had that in place. But he continued to worry about that. And so it's important that we let our kids know that, yes, we may need help, and we as a family are going to work together, but that they don't have to take all the responsibility on themselves. Coping with stress. Here are some things that you can do to kind of help with your stress. And sometimes we kind of feel like we don't have time to do that. And sometimes, some days we really, really don't. But we really need to make time for ourselves in order to help our kids better. We need to take care of ourselves. So here's a few things that you can do. I'm going to show a video of something that does not take a lot of time, that may be able to help you to kind of unwind and feel like you can cope a little better.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Bernstein, and today I want to give you a tool that you can use anywhere, anytime to return to a place of happiness. I know for myself, I get taken out of that happy place very easily, so easily that sometimes it's scary. And if I didn't have the tools that I have in my back pocket to just reconnect to that place of stillness and that place of peace, I don't know what would happen. And I can understand what it's like to live in a world with a lot of chaos and a lot of things that take us out, and many reasons to feel frustrated at times or anxious or scared. And this tool is so divine because it just brings you right back to that happy place, that place of peace within an instant. It can be practiced in less than a minute and you can come back home. It's a beautiful mantra meditation, a Kundalini mantra meditation. And mantra is a single pointed focus, a vibrational sound that aligns you with a frequency that brings peace and stillness into your center, into your core. And this is a mudra and a mantra. So we have a beautiful finger positioning and a mantra going along with it. So to bring us back to peace, we use the mantra, peace begins with me. And we say this gorgeous mantra with the mudras, peace begins with me. Try this out with me now. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. The beautiful part of this meditation is that you can really do it anywhere. You can be in that office meeting and everyone's crazy and anxious and they're freaking out, and under the desk, peace begins with me. Or you're on that crazy commute on the bus trying to get to work, peace begins with me. Or you're on that date and you're a little anxious because it's somebody you really like, under the table, peace begins with me. Or your kids are freaking out and you don't know how to calm them down, peace begins with me. It's a fabulous meditation for your children. What I love most about this meditation is it ignites a sense of happiness and it reminds you of your true nature, which is peace. So anytime, anywhere, tune into this mantra and this mudra and bring yourself back to that state of joy and that state of happiness, and get proactive about your happiness, because your happiness is a choice you make. And you can choose that peace and happiness any moment of the day. It's just a conscious decision to return to the peace within you. I hope this serves you greatly. Sat Nam.
I found this about a year ago, and I was really, really surprised at how well it worked for me. That I could be anywhere and I could do that. And I even talked my husband into doing it, which he doesn't usually like this type of thing, but he really found it calming and helping. And I hope that you can utilize that as well.
Hi.
Okay, family support. It's important that we look around us to see who we can have help us. People who is willing to learn and be able to give us somewhat of a break. So maybe you need respite or childcare to help. You may go to some of your religious or spiritual organizers and tell them that you're needing some support. You may have a case manager or care coordinator, a trusted family or friends, support groups, counseling, recreation. And at times, we have extreme stress, which gives a lot of emotion. And it's very helpful to use our support, our family support or our friend support. And sometimes, we don't have that. Maybe they live out of state, or you're not as involved in the community. But it's important for us to try and find ways to get that support. And I'm going to just put a little plug in here for the Utah Parent Center, and I will throughout this presentation, because they can help you find different resources. There's not a lot of resources for respite, unfortunately, but they can tell you some ways that you can find other supports. And maybe there will be something that they can tell you. But I really recommend everyone that works at the Utah Parent Center has a child with special needs, so they really can understand you. Don't tell me that worrying doesn't help. All things I worry about never happen. How often does this happen to you? We spend a lot of time worrying, and sometimes it's hard to not worry. But it's important for us to find things either like that mantra, or if we need to read or listen to music, talk to someone. We need to find the things that can kind of help us to not think about the worrying, because a lot of times it doesn't happen. I know for us, we were told if my son did survive and he did live, he would be in a vegetative state. And that's not him at all. He graduated from high school. He has a lot of friends. He just invited somebody for his first date. They did it over Zoom. He's been to prom. I told you at the beginning that I was worried if he would do that. He has lots of friends. And, you know, a lot of the things that I did worry about didn't happen. And so trying to realize that things can happen, and we need to kind of be prepared for some things, but to try and find other ways to help us cope with that worrying. There's a lot of things that we're going to use as consumers. Of course, just our daily lives, there's lots of things we use. As parents of children with special needs, we have a lot more things that we might be consumers of. And, you know, there's different therapies, there's different doctors that do different things. I was told that there were oils that would completely heal my son. I heard, you know, of different therapies, and some of them were very expensive, and some of them I really thought about. We did do one, but we made sure before we did it, because my son and I had to move to Arizona for a couple of months each year to do it. But we really made sure that it was something that was going to benefit him, and that it wasn't just something that was kind of bogus. Make sure, and it did really help him. But there were other therapies that I really don't think would have helped. My son takes 37 pills a day with his cystic fibrosis, and, you know, introducing him to different oils and things, or different vitamins, you know, I need to make sure that they're going to be okay with those medications. So make sure that you're talking to your doctor, and talk to somebody who might have done the therapy beforehand, that if it really did help and what things did help. Just because it does help one person doesn't mean it's, you know, going to help the next, but it does give you kind of an idea. And the more people you talk to, a better idea you can get. And try not to get caught up in the hype. Sometimes we hear it and we're kind of looking for that. We're wanting to have our kids, you know, have their special needs go away. And so sometimes, you know, we get really excited and in the moment, but just be really careful and be a good consumer. It's important to keep records. And I did put in the comments at the top, there is the website for all of these slides. And then the next one is medicalhomeportal.org. And if you look on that and go under parents, then there's a care notebook, and you can print off whatever you feel like would be helpful for you to keep together. And as most of you are kind of newer to the diagnosis, now's a really good time to do that, because you think you'll remember everything, but you don't. And so that is a way that you can get different ideas of what records to keep. Julia, it looks like there's a comment.
I reposted that information from the top chat,
Okay.
so that people could find that again.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody have anything up to this point? Things you want to say that's worked for you, things that you're really struggling with?
There was a time, Jody, for us that we did take a break from therapies and doctor appointments, and we did that by paying attention to what our son did and needed. We came out of an appointment one time, and our son looked at me and stopped in the parking lot and signed finished. He used sign language.
Oh,
And how much more direct of a communication do you get?
right.
Well, that's when we pay attention. And we took about 6 months off from all appointments and therapies and like everything, which was very unusual for what his needs were at the time.
Mhm.
And then we came back refreshed, and so did he.
Right.
So as you've been talking in these past couple of slides about, sometimes we do take a break and we do need to look at what therapies are the most important at the time. We can also listen to what the person is in front of us, this child, this young adult, and what they're telling us. Sometimes we do need to do a lot, and sometimes we don't. But when you were talking about that, it reminded me of that time when our son was just like, that's it. And he was a young teenager, and it was okay. That was as self-determined as he was able to be, and very well respected. And all of his appointments and doctors agreed, yeah, we will listen, because that's what we had also been working on. So I think it's important as we're going through all of this to remember what we're doing. Like, what is the main goal, and who is this person, these children and youth that we're living with? Like, we need lives. And it's okay to say we're not going to stretch those fingers when we're changing the diaper. I loved that story. It really is important. So I appreciate all this information. Sometimes we do need to do a lot, and sometimes we can take a break.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Julia, for sharing that.
Jackie, do you have something as well? You're on mute. You're good?
I'm shaking my head. And so
Okay.
I was like, well, she can't see me, my head in agreement, so I'll turn my video on for.
Yeah.
I think there was something in the comment, though. I only see a little orange thing, so I don't know.
Do you want to read that comment, Jackie? That one's yours.
Oh,
Sure. So it was me again. So you just made me think about, how there's all these different options and therapies. And, when we were first getting into it and we knew my son needed and really craved that extra sensory input, he couldn't express himself verbally. And he wanted big hugs, and he wanted rough play and to be able to jump on things, and everything was so expensive, and we didn't have the money for all of this. And things were stretched thin, and you're buying hearing aids and all this stuff. So we finally, we just decided that we weren't going to buy every single thing. And if he really loved something at a therapy office or where he was having therapy sessions, that we weren't going to buy that specific item. So it would keep that item really special for therapy, so he would stay engaged while he was there. And we found that to be like really important. Like, even this year still, when we go mapping for his cochlear implants, his audiologist plays Trouble with him.
no.
And it wasn't until this year at Christmas that one of them got the game Trouble, because they all love it. And I was like, oh, do I buy it? They love it so much. And it's just as silly as just the game of Trouble, but that's just a rule that we've stuck to for the most part pretty strictly. And it's given him something to look forward to. Like, oh, I get to go and play Trouble when I go get mapped, and I really like that game, and I never get to play it at home. So he's got a mapping appointment tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. But
I love that story. Thank you. Yeah, that can be very helpful. We had certain toys that were only used while my son was having his cystic fibrosis therapy every day. He does it twice a day, and it takes about an hour. And so that was something that helped us, was to have one special thing that he could only use during that time. I love that. Thank you. Okay, getting started. we want to make sure that you're not getting overwhelmed and that you're taking one step at a time. And here is the medicalhomeportal.org. And if you search Care Notebook, that again can kind of help you in keeping your records. So where do you find information? There's different conferences and workshops, and the Utah Parent Center is having a workshop on the 20th and 21st. It's $10, but you can get a scholarship. So if you can't afford it, that's okay. They'll help you with that. That was one of the things that helped me so much when I was first starting. Early intervention ended up paying for me to go the first year I went, and it was so helpful to be around other people that, you know, were going through similar things. I learned so much, and this year, of course, because of COVID, it will be done online, but you still can kind of meet other people. And I don't know if they're doing any kind of breakouts or anything, but you know, it might be something. You can go to utahparentcenter.org and then events, and it will, it's on the first page. You can get more information. Looking at websites, this can be good and bad. Sometimes we want to use Google as our doctor and, you know, see what it says about certain things. And sometimes that can be not so good, because sometimes we can get false information. It can build our anxiety. But sometimes, you know, going to certain places on the web can really help. That Medical Home Portal has a lot of really good information. It has good information about how to, you know, find resources. And there's also, if you research, I think, Julia, do you know, it's like the 100 first days of autism or something. And it has a little, a thing that you can go through to kind of see what to expect and how to deal with things. It's free. It's just a PDF that you download.
I can find that. Is it on the Utah Parent Center website, you think?
No, it's,
I can look for it.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Let me know if you don't find it.
Okay.
Sometimes articles.
I think it's the Autism Speaks website.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's really helpful too. I remember reading the whole brochure, and I even sent it to my mom because it helped her to understand what autism was. You know, it kind of explained a lot about it.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is so helpful. We need to kind of let our families know. Sometimes they just don't understand what we're going through and what autism or other special needs are. I remember my sister used to complain all the time that, you know, her daughter wouldn't make her son eat other things. He only has about 10 or 15 things that he'll eat. And, you know, I had to explain to her, this isn't just that she's a bad mom. This is something that, you know, he just won't do. It's not gonna change. So I really appreciate that you brought that up, that it's really important that we give information to our family members and friends too, to help them understand. There's other organizations and agencies. Other Parents is a great way to find out. There are places on Facebook that you can find people that are going through similar things. Again, you can call the Utah Parent Center. They can tell you some of the things that they know of that are available if you want to do that. Accessing services. Trying to find a diagnostic evaluation. It looks like most of you in the comments have done that and have already had the diagnosis, but there are places if you're looking for other types of things as well. Early intervention, it sounds like a few of you are in that. That's very, very helpful, as well as special education. And having insurance is very important for our families that have children with special health care needs. And there are some options. When I first started, I used to work for the Parent Center, and when I first started, I knew families that literally their children passed away because they couldn't get insurance. And so it's been really good that we have options like the Affordable Care Act now and different things. And there's not a lifetime limit anymore. Here are some programs that might help you. I'm not sure why that's doing that. So Baby Watch, that is who has the early intervention program, and it's a great program to kind of help with services for children from birth to 3. So the school is responsible for helping us with our kids from 0 to 22 through 22. So after high school, there's a post-high, and then of course before there's early intervention and preschool. So just be aware that there are options for help through the school system for that. Being eligible for early intervention, you usually have to have one of these types of things, some physical development, maybe not going at the same rate as other kids. They can help with some of that. They can help with how to use adaptive skills, communication and language, learning, problem solving and play skills, social and emotional development. And I will say with that, having them come into your home, that was a really good thing for me. Having somebody come in that could give me other information, that's where I got a lot of my information of what's available. I didn't know who to take my son to as far as a doctor. I didn't know who to ask, and it was nice to have that early intervention person come in, and we talked about the different things that are available. Then, of course, the transition into school at age 3, the preschool, and the bus coming. And then there's the education system. And you can always ask to have an IEP evaluation done for your child. And if you do have IEPs, you can change that IEP throughout the year. You don't have to just do it once a year when they normally say. And make sure that your child is as involved with that as they're able. Have them understand what it means and what their goals are for school. And also be sure to know your rights and responsibilities. Eligibility for special education services. So these are the things that they look for in order to classify a person to get an IEP. There's autism, deafblindness, developmental delay, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, deafness, intellectual disabilities, multiple disabilities, orthopedic, specific learning disabilities, speech and language impairment, traumatic brain injury, other health impairment, and visual impairment, including blindness. So an IEP does an individual education plan, and it can help your child to have better success or a chance at better success for their education. There is also something called the 504. And if your child doesn't qualify for the IEP, that may be something that you may want to look into. That can help with accommodations for things that they need in the classroom, or if they need, say, it can be short-term or long-term. So if somebody was to break their leg, they could have a 504 that they leave class early to get to the next class. Or if it's somebody who has more long-term, then they can make accommodations for that as well. Again, you can find out more about that through the Parent Center. So having healthcare insurance is very important, like we talked about. There's different kinds. There's private insurance that you get through usually your work. COBRA, there's the Affordable Care Act, and there's the Medicaid and disability spend down. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So Medicaid is a federal health insurance program for low-income children and adults, and it's managed and partially funded by the state. So that is traditional Medicaid. We're going to talk about some other Medicaids as well in just a minute. So EPSDT, what this basically means is it's a law that if a person needs something medically, and they're under the age of 21, Medicaid does have to pay for that service, even if it's not something that they usually pay for. And it can be something that they need for treatments, or it may be something that, you know, some kind of medical device that they need to help. But that's an important thing to remember, that if you do have Medicaid, they do help pay for that. And I just want to say this as well, because I know there's some younger kids on here. If your child is in diapers, Medicaid will pay after the age of 3 if you have a diagnosis that that qualifies that, you know, that they do need to have diapers. So just a good thing to note. There are different waivers available, and what a waiver is, it's Medicaid that waives the parent's income and solely goes by the child's income. So one of the waivers is DSPD, Division of Services for People with Disabilities. And this is kind of the one that you'll hear the most about. It's for people who have intellectual disabilities or related conditions. And it's something that you have to apply for. And then there's the Travis C waiver that is a technology dependent waiver that usually you have to have a person with a trach and that is on a vent in order to qualify for that, mostly because there's not as many slots available. Also, DSPD does have a wait list, so be aware of that. It's important to get on it as soon as possible so that if you're really needing it and it becomes available, that you can utilize that. And then there's also a medically complex children's waiver, and that is for children from 0 to 18. It ends after right up until their 19th birthday. And they have to have 3 or more organs systems involved in their disability. So maybe they have a G-tube, and I just lost my train of thought. So different organs, maybe 3 specialists, maybe they have like a shunt. So those are some of those things. And then who are not meeting their appropriate age milestones for their active living. Okay, there is another Medicaid. It's called Medicaid D, stands for Medicaid Disability. And whereas Medicaid is, traditional Medicaid is solely based on finance, Medicaid D does take into consideration some of the costs for the disability. And they will look at if you're paying things out for different medical expenses, and then you may be able to qualify, but there may be what's called a spend down. And what the spend down is say you made $200 more than what you could make in order to qualify for the Medicaid. You could pay the $200 and then Medicaid will cover everything else. The nice thing about that is when you do qualify, you can qualify for up to a year, and then you can redo it, but it's for a year. You only have to do the spend down on the times when you use that is necessary for you to use it. So if you didn't have $200 worth of medical expenses in one month, but the next month you had thousands of dollars, then you could use it for that. So that kind of makes it nice. And what I do suggest, if you do have a spend down, that you make as many appointments as you can in the 1 month that you do that spend down. Were there comments, Julia?
There was a question about the requirements to qualify for DSPD.
Okay. So DSPD is there's 3 different programs for DSPD. One is the Community Supports Waiver that is for people who have intellectual disabilities or related services. And if you go to dspd.utah.gov and look under eligibility, /eligibility, it will tell you what the related conditions are. So it's things like physical needs. You have to have 3 of the, is it 7, Julia?
Yeah, 3 of the 7.
Yeah, 3 of the 7. There's things like receptive language. So if you go on there, you can look and see. That's the most common one. There are 2 others that go through DSPD. One is brain injury and one is physical disability. But those are after the age of 18, and you have to be able to they have to be able to tell the person what their needs are. That is a whole training in itself. And I think, Julia, there's one tomorrow night, right? I don't know if I should say that or not. I know you're kind of keeping it to different dates, but for different family-to-family networks.
There is a training tomorrow night about this. You're also welcome to contact me directly, and I can go over that with you, because the training tomorrow night is at capacity. So I'm going to put my email into the chat, and you can contact me directly and we can go over more of your specific questions. I'm also going to put in a link to a video we have currently onto the Utah Parent Center website that goes over the application. But again, please contact me directly and we'll go over specifics about the DSPD eligibility and requirements for that. There is a training tomorrow night. We have about 100 people signed up for it.
Wow. That's great that you have so many people. Yeah, great question. And again, it really, there's a lot of information on it. So please contact Julia. Okay, denials happen in insurance. So I just wanted to put this up here so that you can know that it is your right to appeal. If they say they're not going to pay for something, you can appeal, and there's a form that they all have that you can fill out to appeal that. Make sure that you're keeping good records and that you're keeping a paper trail. So if you talk to somebody on the phone and they say, that they'll be able to do something, make sure you write their name and the time that you called. I used to keep a little calendar. Right now we have cell phones, but I used to use a calendar that I would just write kind of what the basic of the conversation was, and then who I talked to and what time and what date. You can ask for one-time exceptions if it's something that's not normally covered. And it's good if you have your physician try and help you with that process through appealing. And they can sometimes write a medically necessary letter to insurance that may be able to help as well. Supplemental security income. This is for people who have special needs. They can get SSI money sometimes. It is based on finances, how much a family makes until the age of 18, and then it's solely based on the child's income and assets. It they need to have a disability that's suspected to last more than 12 months, and that you will have to have like a psychological done on them to kind of help them to, and some medical stuff as well to help them determine if you're eligible. Again, if you're wanting more information on this, this also is kind of a full training. But if you contact the Parent Center, Utah Family Voices, they can help you to understand how this works. Partnering with providers, just make sure that you remember that you have the most interest, you understand your child. I usually tell doctors that I have a PhD, I have a parent's honorary diploma, because I know my child and have done that research on my child for 24/7 hours a day for however many years. And it's important for you to realize that, you know your child best. I had a situation where the doctor told me that my son had no signs of dehydration. And I said, I know he's dehydrated. And she just wanted to send us home. And he was kind of sick at the time as well. So we were determining if he would need to go in the hospital. So she went ahead and had labs done. And sure enough, he was very, very dehydrated. So sometimes I think we're kind of taught to not tell doctors how we feel and let them they're the expertise, but we're the expertise on our child. And so we need to work together so that, because they have the expertise in the medical part of it. And it's okay to be assertive. Just make sure that you're working as a team. All right. I just want, this is the last slide. And I told you in the beginning that my son they did not expect him to live. And if he did, that it would be he would be in a vegetative state. And don't let other people tell you what your child can and can't do, because we don't know the possibilities. I am amazed. I didn't know if my son would live this long. I certainly didn't know that he would be doing all the things that he did throughout his life. And so don't listen to what doctors say. Go by what you feel, and don't set limitations on your child.
I cannot see, but I can hear the world around me.
Meet Brian. He's known as the world's best totally blind mountain biker.
When I was younger, I had functional vision and I played sports. I had dreams of becoming a professional athlete.
And then suddenly, when he was 14, he completely lost his sight over the course of 3 months. His optic nerves inexplicably failed, and all he could see was darkness. He wasn't able to bike ride or participate in the sports he once enjoyed.
I couldn't play hockey. I had to stop rollerblading, couldn't read the classroom board anymore. My world had shrunk.
He had to find a new way to navigate the world. He found his cane limiting. But when he learned to make a tongue click, his world changed again for the better, and it wasn't long until he ventured back outdoors.
I really missed bike riding, and I really wanted to be active. I just didn't know how to do it. As a blind rider, it was a goal for me to get off the tandem and have the experience of being able to pilot my own bike. It all starts with a zip tie. A sighted person would attach it to their frame and angle it into the bike wheel. The bike wheel would make noise and a sound would follow, while we would still actively click.
Eventually, Brian was able to mountain bike alone and without the zip tie.
When I'm riding my bike down a mountain, it's the same thing bats are using, echolocation. I can make my active sonar signal by making a tongue click. I start off with trying to find the object furthest in the distance, and then piece the world together with things closer and closer.
Brian has to enter an almost meditative state and remain extremely focused.
Everything has to leave my brain, and those sounds are painting a picture in my head, a vivid world of acoustic images.
He didn't keep his passion to himself, though. He's helped teach over thousands of people to hear their world a little bigger.
This is a teachable thing. Anybody can do this, and I'm happy to show them. Riding my bike was something I never thought I'd be able to do again. And now that I'm doing it, it serves as a great example to challenge preconceived ideas.
Is that not incredible? Our kids are worth letting them explore and do the things that they want to do and can do. And it's important that we don't have those limitations set. I'm not sure why this doesn't have, oh, there it is. Here's the contact information for the Utah Parent Center if you decide you want to give them a call. And I appreciate you coming tonight, and I'm more than welcome to stay. I'm more than happy to stay and answer any questions or talk about your child or whatever it is that you would like.
Thank you so much, Jody. I love that video every time. There's a comment again. I'm going to let Jackie come off mute. And while we're doing that, there is a poll that I would appreciate if we can complete this poll, just to say how much we appreciate Jody tonight. But please ask questions, and let's continue to talk for just a little bit longer while we're completing that. Thank you so much. Jackie, go right ahead.
Okay, so first off, thanks so much, Jody. This was just really great. I really enjoyed it, and you know, I am into these. I love support groups and parent groups and all of this stuff. And you know, there's just a lot of new information that I hadn't received before. So that was really good for me and nice to see. So thank you so much. I also just want to see, you know, I so much agree with that statement. Like, never let others set the limitations based on, you know, their perception or their snapshot of what they've seen your child do or what they think your child might be able to do based on a test, you know, typically done outside of their home or outside of their normal environment. Just really focus on your child and watch them, and they'll guide you to what they need. And as a parent, the mother's intuition, the father's intuition, really listen to that. If you need to find a new professional that will work with you, that's totally okay too. You know, we had people that didn't want to work with our son and said he would never speak, and he just needed to go full ASL school that he really wanted to engage with people using spoken language. You would try to sign to him, and he would hide his face in the couch, and because he did have some hearing and he lost it. And so he understood what it was to have that back and forth, and he wanted that back. So we could tell he was ready to work for that. And he's just done so well. You know, people tell me all the time, oh, I can't even tell, you know, like he doesn't have that deaf speak, and which we fully expected that's, you know, what we would get to. And he loves to play the guitar, and he writes me little cute songs. Of course, they're all in like the note of C, but it's just such a amazing thing to when you get the right team together to help support your child, and you just listen to their needs and watch their needs. I love that story. And I've never seen that mountain biker story.
Isn't that cool?
It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing that. I love that he has, you know, gone above and beyond what the other people might have said. So thank you for sharing that story.
Definitely, it was a lot of hard work, but he was willing to do it. You know, he wanted it. So
absolutely.
We're just barely this year, I think, not doing after school speech therapy for the first time ever.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so cool. What an accomplishment.
And kids normally age out of that, you know, kindergarten, first grade, if they get cochlear implants and stuff early on. So yeah, he had to work quite a few extra years to get there, but He did it. So
It did it though. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point to bring up, because sometimes it takes longer, and just don't give up, you know. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Anybody else?
What do you guys have for next month, Jody and Tracy? What's your topic for next month? You guys meet the first Tuesday of every month.
Uh-huh. Tracy, what are we doing next month? What, February?
February 2nd, I have early intervention.
Oh, there we go. Very good. Good deal. Taking a deeper dive into early intervention. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then what do we have in March?
March,
I'm sorry, I don't have my.
I have transition to adult life.
Okay. And then also, and then in April, we'll do a Easter egg hunt. We have a really fun one that we do every year. If it still looks like COVID will keep us from doing that, we still will do something with a drive-by. So make sure that you keep track on our Facebook page.
Awesome.
Awesome. Very good, Jody.
That was awesome. Thank you so
Good
much.
information.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. Good luck. And if you need some support, make sure that you reach out.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.